Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey, welcome back. Well, welcome to Season 4 of The Wilder Ride. This here, our Listeners Lounge, a feature we started last season and we're planning to continue into the Season 4, as obviously evident by us here. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
And I am your co-host, as always, Walt Murray.
And Walt, this is going to be a fun one. This is sort of you think of a pilot, you only need to do a pilot on the very first season, but you know what? We're doing sort of a preview. What's coming up in Season 4?
Yeah, it's almost like when the TV guide comes out. And
Right.
you get
The specials. Yes, the fall preview.
Exactly.
Only since we're starting at the beginning of the year, this is like the midwinter preview.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we never do things the normal way, so
we do it kind of wild.
Exactly.
Maybe a little wilder.
A little wilder. It's a wilder ride.
It is very much a wilder ride. You and I did our traditional Johnny's New York style. God damn it, I can't talk. We did our traditional meetup at Johnny's New York style pizza for our launch of our season, which I think is a tradition I don't mind hanging on to. That's kind of cool.
No, I almost think we should have done it again today. But
yeah, we really should. We really should. Anytime for beer and pizza is a good time.
I know. Twist my arm.
Yeah, make me show up. So, well, you know what? One of the things I want to do is we need to get caught up. It's been about 6 weeks since we took our hiatus for the holidays. We went through nearly up to Christmas. We had shows dropping right before the week before Christmas. And here we are. We're recording early February. What's been going on? Did you have a good holiday?
I had a good holiday. Yeah, I mean, it was still weird. We're still dealing with COVID and all that garbage. But it was nice just to have a few weeks to relax. Kids were all around, so that's good. I have been practicing my culinary skills more and more. So I have done all kinds of, I've burned all kinds of stuff recently. And
how about calories?
I have been trying to burn some calories as well. So with mixed success, but at least I'm headed in the right direction. I'm hurting in all the right places. So...
Look, I'm just waiting for our first little snowfall so you can take your obligatory picture of you with a hoodie and shorts.
Yeah, I had to repost one from the other day, from a few years ago.
I saw that.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how that came up, but somebody posted a meme about
because
it.
Someone had a post that said there's always that one guy who wears shorts, even in winter.
Yep, and that one guy is me. And but, I mean, my legs are fine. So,
yes.
So yeah, but we have so far either dodged the bullet or missed the train just barely several times over the last few weeks. We've had like 34 degrees and rain. I don't know what 5.
We had sleet on our deck the other night.
Yeah, we did too.
It was like half snow, half sleet, but it wasn't cold enough to stay.
I mean, it was so close. We were probably within a degree of a winter wonderland.
I'm hoping we're doing the broadcaster's curse by talking about it right now. By the time this drops, we will have already been too late. It's already snowed,
Yeah, it's coming. I think we're going to get hit. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Ohio the other day, and they had several inches on the ground. And so I miss that. I really do miss having a few inches of snow here.
I do too. I told Susan, I said, we'll get into it in a little bit, some of the other endeavors, but one of the things I mentioned just recently is money being, available. I'd love to have a cabin somewhere in maybe the Rocky Mountains, somewhere where it's more consistent to get snow. So when we could say, hey, we can rent the cabin out, let renters pay for the mortgage over the course of 9 months out of the year. But maybe if a month shows up that we want to be able to go up there and just spend time in the mountains, we'd have our own cabin. I think that would be really cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah, my brother works for a company, and the owner has a cabin in, I think it's Bozeman, Montana. And
Oh,
by cabin,
wow.
I mean like 3 times bigger than my house.
Right. It's like a mansion.
Yes.
Right.
And
We borrowed a cabin from a guy who's an orthopedic surgeon. It had 12 bedrooms.
Oh, yeah, that's ridiculous. And that's awesome. I
It
mean,
was huge.
great.
It was awesome.
Great for him.
Yeah.
And and so my brother's boss lets them go out there and use that every once in a while. And my brother sent me a picture the last time they were out there, and it was like 8 inches of snow piled on the rail of the deck. I mean, just snow everywhere. So that would be
Maybe
awesome.
it's because I grew up in Detroit. I told Susan, I said, you're not guaranteed the snowfall here where we live, even in Northwest Georgia. It's hit or miss. And even if you get it, it may only last for an evening or a day or two. It's very rare that we have one of those snowfalls that last for 2 or 3 days. I kind of miss it.
Oh, I do too. And every time we get, to this time of year, I'm just, Lord, please let us get just a couple of days worth. And it was 6 years ago that we got our, the big snowpocalypse. And so we've really not had that much since then.
No, it was 3 years we had that other one that they had screwed up. Remember, they thought we would only get about an inch and it turned out to be like 8 or 10.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But we had learned our lesson from the snowpocalypse. Everyone was let home early, so we didn't have that kind of problem with people trapped on the interstate.
Yeah, and for those folks who don't live in the South, if you come down here during one of those, you're going to be surprised, because what happens is everybody goes into a complete panic, and then we get covered in a sheet of ice. So you can't get anywhere. Cars are, wrecked all over the place, and of course, being the South, we don't have snow plows and salt trucks ready to go all the time. So
we've gotten better, though. I think since the blizzard
better.
of 93, that was a little bit of a wake-up call for at least Atlanta and Georgia. But the snowpocalypse, that was a massive wake-up. They are now really invested in the brine treating of the roads to at least prevent the icing on the interstates, because those were tens of thousands of people trapped on the interstate in their cars in business attire.
Yeah,
because nobody thinks to have a winter coat in their car or a blanket. Nobody ever prepares for an emergency.
Or water or
granola bars, things like that. Just have something in your car. Yeah.
Toilet paper.
I remember buddies of mine lived close to the interstate, and they just went and started gathering a bunch of bottled waters and granola bars from stores that were donating, and they literally walked up and down the interstate handing out water and granola bars to people who were still waiting for it to thaw.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
My wife was trapped in that. It took her 8 hours to get home on a normal 1 hour commute.
A friend of mine was kind of in the same position. He was right there where I-75 and I-285 come together. He is not too far from you. He's up in New Harley. And it took him, he finally gave up, walked to a friend's house, slept there, and the next morning made the rest of the way. But it still took him 4 hours the next day to get home.
That was the time, and I know we're playing a little reminiscence here all of a sudden, a little rabbit trail, but my oldest daughter was driving. She had a car, and she would drive her stepsister and her biological sister and her other stepsister. Excuse me, the other one was at the elementary school, but she would have to go pick her up since she was the only one driving. So Ashton, my oldest, her last name was Sanders. My wife, who kept her husband's name, even though she's divorced because the kids' names were Delmonico, they had the last name Delmonico. Well, everybody knows that we're all together. It's one big happy family. We're the San Monicos. Everybody knows us by that. I called the school and I said, hey, with it snowing, I need to make sure that Lexi and Elena both can ride home with Ashton. Like, oh, well, Elena can because she's got the same last name. I said, well, Lexi is my stepdaughter, but she doesn't have the same last name. No kidding, because she's my stepdaughter, but it's all the same family. I actually, for 30 minutes, was arguing with this Nimrod running the administration of the high school. Finally, I got her to see sense and let her to come home, because I was like, so what you're telling me is I'm supposed to let my one daughter go home and leave another daughter there, rather than having at least all of them together, so if they got stranded, at least they'd all be one place together. I'm going to have to coordinate getting one home by herself and come get the other ones, and it was a nightmare.
I don't get that. Anyway, we could go off on our government administration tirade.
Well, I think this was just the school administrator trying to like figure out, okay, where's our liability? Where's like your liability is it's snowing. You need to let the kids go home. We're all one family. I'm the parent. I'm telling you, let them go.
Right, and this child is telling you, I am her sister. Let me leave with her. So, yeah.
But anyway,
and I know a lot of people
that said,
spend the night in offices and schools. So I know there was a lot of that going on.
Well, all that said, I do miss snow. I don't miss the snowpocalypse when everybody like loses their freaking minds and gets stranded. It's more fun when we're all home together, and then we can go experience it as like a family.
Exactly.
All right. Well, our Christmas, we had all the girls but one able to be back here. We had a great time. It was a fantastic rolling into the new year. The only thing that's been weird, and Susan and I, you, me, Susan, a lot of people in our circle, we're less into the fear porn as others. But Susan's dad, who usually comes down and stays with us for the holidays, he's 80. We said, look, we're as safe as we can be, but you're 80. And we know that if you were to get COVID, it's worse for you than for us. For us, we're not worried. In fact, Susan already got over it. And oh, by the way, check this out, Walt. For the fun of it, I interviewed Dr. Ryan once a month in my show for the radio where I was a physician's third Saturday. He's like, you just might want to come in and get an antibody test just to do it, just to see. I finally said, you know what? I've got nothing to do after the show this coming morning during the regular morning show. Let me swing by. He goes, okay, I'll have my nurse ready for you. I was outdone 5 minutes. They sent the test off to a lab. 2 days later, guess what? I am overflowing in COVID antibodies.
That is hilarious.
Which means this entire time, I have not only been impervious, I must have fought it off at some point. I can't catch it. I can't give it. So get off my back.
You know what's funny is I bet you and I were exposed to it right about the same time because I think I've had it. And I know that I was in the radio station sometime right around that time. So I don't know if I gave it to you or you gave it to me or someone else gave it to us, but I am betting that we probably both had it right around the same time.
You know what? You should go take it. I don't know how much it costs. And I know our Kroger does a quick version. I was
going to say Kroger over here now has it for $25.
$25. You know what? And I wish there'd be more of a push to have people go get that test. That is a much better test to tell people to go get than whether or not you're positive for COVID-19. Because if you go get the antibody test, you can at least sit back and go, okay, I'm fine. I can't catch it right now. And oh, by the way, Dr. Ryan's been doing some ongoing sort of his own analysis of patients. He's had patients that have had COVID as far back as 8 months ago, still testing strong for the antibodies.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. So,
which is a good sign that it's one of those things where because it's a unique virus and because your body had to like go, whoa, what's this? It may have a long-term immunity if you caught it naturally. Fought it off naturally.
Yeah, let's hope.
Because, I didn't miss a day of work.
I missed a couple, but I was pretty miserable. If that is what I've had, I hope that nobody ever gets it because it is miserable. It is brutal.
Well, you should go get the test just to find out because it was easy. Because what's the worst they tell you? Nope, you don't have antibodies? Oh, well, you're doing the same thing you were doing anyway.
Oh, yeah. No, still living a reckless life of...
with reckless abandon.
Well, hey, to change the subject just a little bit, I want to ask you something, Alan.
Sure.
So, one of our favorite shows is Star Trek, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I signed up on Amazon.com for the monthly Star Trek t-shirt. Have you seen that? It's like a subscription service.
I'm a nerd, but I don't know if I'm quite into that depth of nerdness.
Well, I'm always happy to get
for
new t-shirts and stuff. And I figured, hey, I'll do this for 6 months. I'll be good. Did you know that Star Trek has changed their slogan?
What do you mean?
Well, it used to be to boldly go where no.
To boldly go where no. Well, it started off as no man, and then with Next Generation, where no one has gone.
That's
before.
right. Well, now it is boldy go. On the T-shirt this month, they misspelled boldly. So on all the Amazon reviews for this service, people have pictures of themselves with it is spelled BOLDY go, and it says boldly go together, and it has the whole cast of the original series. I didn't the first time I put it on, I wore it out to the store. I didn't even pay any attention to it. I ran into a friend of mine and his kid, and we're standing there talking, and I noticed the kid is really like staring at my shirt, and I said something about Star Trek. He goes, no, that's not what I'm looking at. What does that
looking
say?
At the typo.
And I said, boldly go. He goes, no, it doesn't. And I look down, and sure enough, it is misspelled.
That's too funny.
Well, and people are like, I want to return it. I'm like, no, you don't return that. That's a classic. That is a collector's item.
Well, the fact that you knew you got it from a big, organization or whatever club, but, I'm thinking, oh, here's somebody who bought a Cricket and trying to make your own crap in your basement,
I know. Well, I started really kind of doubting where this came from. So
I have a feeling it didn't come from the United States.
I seriously doubt that. I'm sure it was made in some other country, but
wow.
But I was laughing so hard when I realized what happened. So
go.
I logged on to Amazon. I was looking at it, and sure enough, all these people are posting it, going, "What does Baldy Go mean?"
That's too funny. Too Baldy Go. It's funny you say that because I just happened to catch on. I went one of those YouTube rabbit trails. Sometimes when you go watch one thing and it says, no, we suggest the following videos. And then like 3 hours of your life gets sucked into the YouTube
yes,
wormhole.
I'm very familiar.
I watched a little mini documentary about the folks behind the scenes, the restoration of the original Star Trek series with the updated graphics, the 3D, the print, the sound. It was fascinating. I didn't realize how much went into the restoration of the updated original series.
I didn't either. I'll have to watch that because I know that a lot of people are like, oh man, you got to have the original stuff. I kind of like the updated graphics, and it just has a kind of crisper feel to it. And
what I loved is every single person they interviewed, they were all saying the same thing. We're not here to make it look like a 2000 something movie. We still want to think of what the 60s represented for the thinking of the show, but we're just trying to overcome some of the challenges they had in terms of the effects, in terms of the sound, in terms of the picture quality. I mean, the first thing they started with was just the picture quality. The first thought was, look at, these are all kind of muted. They lack contrast. There's not really a lot of good depth. The lighting's not all that great. We can digitize this and add at least just a really good, solid print. I'm not changing anything besides making it just look better. Fix the scratches in the prints, fix all the little noise. But then they started going, well, while we're here, what about the soundtrack? The sound is recorded in a technology of the 60s. We've got the original music and we know the original instruments. Should we just maybe bring somebody in who appreciates Star Trek, who can conduct a brand new orchestra, but yet with the exact sheet music? And so I'm just watching this and I'm just amazed. And they started talking about the special effects team, and they said, well, they couldn't figure out how to do this and this back then. They had like 17 stock shots. Well, now we can actually move the camera along the Enterprise. We can actually move it where they would have loved to have had it had they had more of a budget and more technology. And so I'm actually thinking about getting an enhanced season on Blu-ray just to have them.
I think I'm going to have to do that too, because the thing that I appreciate about what they did is they didn't George Lucas Star Trek, where, all of a sudden Captain Kirk's walking down the street, there's some new monster or there's something else. They didn't change that. They just made it more viewable. And one of the reasons why I'm okay with it is as our TVs get better and the quality remains in that 1960s quality, it really does lose something. So I'm happy to see that enhancement and cleaning it up a little bit just to make it that much more enjoyable to me.
Yeah, it was a fascinating little jaunt down the world of the original Star Trek. And then the closest they came to, quote, George Lucasing anything is, the fight with the Gorn?
Yeah.
And it's just a guy in a rubber suit. They actually added eye blinks just to make it look a little more alive. And I'm like, okay,
wow,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what is this called again?
It was just a documentary I caught on YouTube about the making or the behind the scenes of the guys that did the special enhanced version or re-release of the original Star Trek series.
Okay.
I don't even know what the name was. It's just one of those things that I started watching it and I'd have to go look and see what it is, but it was just the people behind, hey, we love Star Trek and we want to try to do as much as we can to save it, preserve it, but can we do something to make it look a little bit better? Basically, can we polish the apple so it shines?
Yeah, that's great. Well, you know what rabbit hole I got down? So they're not a sponsor of ours yet, but they might be after this. The Ninja Air Fryer. My brother was like, man, you got to get this thing. It's awesome. It'll do 5 million things. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. So I kind of ignored him.
Wait a minute. Have you never had an air fryer yet?
No, but I've about burned through the one I just bought.
Dude, we bought one about a year and a half ago. We bought a small little one with a little basket because we were like, this looks like infomercial kind of stuff. We loved it so much. We upgraded to a 2-tier rack system so that way we can grill air fry multiple things.
Move. Well, I got on YouTube and I just typed in Ninja Air Fryer. And I mean, people are making all kinds of stuff in this thing. Well, over the weekend, I was on, and this guy was on showing us how to make like the world's best wings. And I was
oh my God, the wings you can make at home,
dude!
You'll never go out again.
It got to where on about the 5th run of wings, and so here's the other thing: like nobody sat down. My entire family standing around the kitchen. And every time I pulled the set out, they were gone. So,
right. That's why we had to get the bigger one because we were making wings and like we could only make so many in the little basket. So once we got the rack system where we could have a much bigger, ours looks like a toaster oven. It's so big.
Yeah. So the one that I've got, there's a video out there showing you how to make 15 of them at a time. So in the basket. So I made one where I put cornstarch in a Ziploc bag, like in a gallon bag. Threw a bunch of frozen wings in, shipped that up really good, and then dumped Williamson's Brothers barbecue sauce in there and shook that up and let it just sit for about 10 minutes. And then I put that in the fryer. It was like eating candy wings. It was so good.
There are times when wings like at the butcher aisle or the meat aisle of the grocery store, not the frozen aisle. I'm talking about their fresh chicken wings you can buy and you have to kind of like cut them up and break them into pieces. I will get a couple of packages of those every now and then when they're on sale. And we do a hot lemon pepper where it is all just cayenne pepper with lemon pepper combined. And that's our meal. We will just we could put probably 10 or 12 per rack. We could do, because of the thickness of them, we could do 2 racks. So we'll have 24 wings come out at once. Dude, it's like a feast and you're just eating one wing after the other, and better than any restaurant I've ever been to.
Well, I have a Sam's Club membership, and so I'm sure this week I'll be walking out with the 87-pound bag of chicken wings. And the great thing is it's like no fat. You're not really frying it. You're air crisping it.
No, you're not.
And
you know what's cool? Because you and I, obviously we said at the very beginning, we like pizza. You will never, ever reheat pizza in the microwave again now that you have an air fryer.
Oh, my gosh.
You put it in the air fryer, it is just like out of the oven again.
Well, when you and I got done doing radio a couple weeks ago, you had said something about a hot dog. And so I got home, I was like, I wonder how the hot dog is in the air fryer.
Aren't they good in there?
Oh, my gosh. You'll never have a hot dog that good.
That I will put hot dogs in the air fryer. I've done pork chops in the air fryer. I've done wings, obviously, pizza, French fries, anything you think of that you would normally put either in the oven or if you're trying to warm something up in the microwave, put it in the air fryer. I am a believer.
Here's one that I just came up with. I cut up a bunch of zucchini, squash, and onions, threw that in a Ziploc bag, a pound of shrimp, Old Bay spice, and olive oil. Shook it up till it's completely covered, threw it in for 5 minutes, stirred it, threw it in for 4 more minutes, stirred it again, 1 minute, and out. And it is unbelievably delicious.
Well, look at that. We've just turned it into a cooking show. We've got a third podcast all
I
of
was
a
gonna
sudden.
say-
Cooking with the Wilder
That's
Ride.
ninjaairfryer.com.
Sponsor our show.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I saw the first air fryer sort of infomercial on TV, and when my wife was like, "Do we want to get one of these?" I'm like, "The dude."
I did the same thing. I was like,
is
total nonsense. This is baloney.
everything it's cracked up to be. I love our air. We actually, once we got the bigger air fryer, we got rid of our toaster oven. There's no reason to have a toaster oven.
We haven't touched the toaster oven since. I went in the other night, and my daughter, who was like, "Why did we have this? This is stupid." She was in there making
It's just taking
mozzarella
up
cheese
counter
sticks.
space.
And I was
We
like,
could have
well,
a second
there you
air
go.
fryer. Oh, good. Yes. Any of those sort of frozen foods, finger foods, snack foods, if you're having like in a Super Bowl party like we just had or whatever, the mozzarella cheese sticks, anything in the air fryer, holy crap.
Yeah, and this thing's crazy. I haven't even used everything that it comes with, but it has a hamburger rack. It's got all kinds of stuff like that. You can do, every kind of vegetable, and then it will actually dehydrate fruit if you need it to. So
We've done that as well.
yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So,
Well, I'm glad you're finally on the air fryer train because,
and
our good buddy Chris over in the UK with 60MW, he heard me talking to Susan about that on a Fitness First Saturday one Saturday. They went out and bought one, and he goes, I can't believe I've never bought one of these before. I will never use anything other than the air fryer ever
seriously,
again.
well, I'm probably eating like half the calories because I'm not frying it in anything. It's just,
Right.
And so it's, this is great. I mean, this is like the miracle cooker.
All right, well, we need to get Ninja to sponsor us or any other air fryer that wants to come along. We'll be more than happy to give them a plug.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I guess we did get down that rabbit trail a little bit. So, well, I know you and I were talking. So, you've been watching a lot of stuff in the off season, right?
Right. Okay. How do you want to do this? Do you want to go down the what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening to, which is usually how we wrap, or do we want to talk about our plans for season 4 first?
You know what? Let's do that. That is kind of more important. So let's talk about that real quick.
What, talk about our season 4 finally after 30 some minutes?
I know it's it's our way.
Well, I think you and I both decided, because season 3 kind of threw a wrench into a whole lot of people's lives. We don't need to recap that. We loved doing our listeners' lounge, and we hadn't even scratched the surface of the number of people that we could interview and the number of people we would love to interview. So I think that was pretty much a no-brainer. We were going to keep that element of what we do. We were going to have a lounge, a listener's lounge to go to. So this show actually is kind of like the precursor of what should happen next week, which will be the return to a once-a-week interview with somebody.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, we have so many people now that we're like, oh yeah, we've got to get that lady on. We've got to get this guy on. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
And we actually, when we met for beer and pizza, we came up with a list of about 30 names almost without even thinking. That's more than half a season.
Yeah, and it was everybody from a guy who, played in the NFL, then became a Navy SEAL, to all kinds of other people. So it's an interesting group of folks that we know.
And it brought in a different audience than the ones who were interested in the movie by minute kind of genre. So I think, we both said to ourselves, we want to be able to continue the interview piece because we do love talking to people. We love meeting people we may have grown up with, people that, had successful careers that we were aware of, people we've met along our professional journeys, or people we reach out to for the very first time. And I said, let's just keep that. We want to keep the listener's lounge. So that's going to be an ongoing weekly show. Should start dropping every Tuesday right after this episode here. So you'll have that the rest of the season until we get close to the holidays again and take our break.
Yeah, and by the way, if anybody out there is listening and there's somebody who who would be a good guest for us, please by all means reach out to Alan or I and let us know and put us in touch, because even though we have this list, there are going to be some people who can't make it. But we also, I mean, this is about y'all as well. We want,
Right.
y'all to be able to kind of say, hey, here's somebody who I want to hear about. And
We have a list, but I like to think it's a dynamic list. We can shift things around.
Absolutely. And we just want to talk to interesting people, even if it's people we've never heard of, or maybe it's somebody famous that or somebody who just has done something cool. That's who we want to talk to. So by all means, send them our way.
Yep. And especially if you've got an inside track, that's even better. So
yeah, absolutely.
Along with that, because we weren't able to do a movie last year, we had a bunch of guests lined up that were supposed to come in studio. You and I still have all my pre-production work. It's all sitting on my shelf right now.
Oh yeah,
but
I've got a ton of notes.
You and I had a chance, and we're going to talk about this probably next, all the different shows we've guested on, and I kind of missed breaking movies down. And so you and I have decided we are going to do a Gene Wilder movie this year.
Yes, we have, and we debated a little less than I thought we would. We both kind of landed in the same place on this one.
Yeah, I think so. And here's what I can tell you. I don't want to give away the movie. I don't want to give away anything about who we're bringing on or what's going on. I can only tell you this. It won't be a daily drop minute by minute like we did in the first 2 seasons, because if we keep the listeners' lounge, we also want to keep our jobs and our marriages. So we have to kind of find that kind of even place where we can kind of maybe give and take a little. But we are going to break a movie down into some pretty good discussions, and it's a pretty important movie that has a really specific anniversary this year.
That's right. So it will be, it won't take folks too much to figure out what it is, but I think everybody will be excited once we announce it.
I can only tell you this. We plan to drop the first episode. We have to have some time here because we got to get a lot of work done. We have a lot of people to interview. We have a lot to record. But the first episode should drop on Wednesday, June the 30th. And then it'll be 1 week. It'll be a weekly show. It'll be, as far as I think, Walt, we're talking about a weekly drop that should last till the end of the year.
So June the 30th, eh? What
June the 30th. Well, we'll let the audience to go see if they've got a little gumption to go look things up. But yes.
Well, I hope they do, because I've already forgotten. So.
Well, that's good. It'll be fresh for you. It'll be like you see it for the first time.
That will be amazing. No, I'm looking forward to this one. This will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. So we are planning to have literally 2 shows this season. One will be starting pretty much next week. This is sort of our reacquaintance with our audience, our season 4 opener. But we will have our listeners' lounge once a week, and then starting in June, we will have a movie that we're breaking down through the rest of the year.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I think that is a good balance for us.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things we're doing. I don't know if you know, but there's some things that have happened in my life since the beginning of the year that I wasn't expecting, and we've both been involved in a lot of other shows as guests.
Yes, we have. In fact, we were kind of coming up with a list of all the stuff both of us have been on in the 6 weeks we've been off.
In the hiatus. Yeah, while everybody thinks we're not working, guess what we've been doing?
Yes, we have been working our butts off. So, Alan, what are some of the shows that you've been a guest on?
Well, why don't we start with this one that is actually a call out to the collaborative project for the Movies by Minutes community.
I think that's a good one to start with.
For 4 years now, this is the 4th year, Jim O'Kane, who is one of the guys that is one of the original folks in the Movies by Minutes community that, he started off with the Rocketeer Minute, and the lead actor of the Rocketeer ended up reaching out to him and involved himself in a couple of shows, or actually several shows. And he's gone on to do things like the Apollo 13 Minute, and in the middle of the Andromeda Strain Minute. He actually had this cool idea. What if we get a bunch of these Movies by Minutes podcasters, because they each have their own style and flair and voice and tone, and we pick one movie and randomly assign however many groups to 5 or 10 minutes of the movie. And it's basically a Movies by Minutes collaboration project. And last year, it was the Hitchcock Minute, where they did North by Northwest, And Walt, that was the first year you and I got involved, and we had the first 10 minutes of that movie of about, 10 or 12 different teams.
Yeah, yep. And it was interesting because we had never done it before, and we get dropped the first 10 minutes. So
we're responsible for setting the stage. So
we have to get people interested and keep them listening.
Right. That was all random. I forgot the celebrity Jim had that picked names out of the hat, and we got picked first. And then the same thing happened. Season 4, an Academy Award winning film, The Best Years of Our Lives, a post-World War II movie filmed literally on the backside of the end of World War II. It was about a 3-hour movie, so I think there's like 15 teams that was needed to be able to do 10 minutes each of the movie. And you and I ended up getting to open the dang thing
the
again.
First 10, yeah. So I don't know if that was luck or a fix of some kind, but
the fix is in. These guys know what they're doing. No. What we do is we set the bar so low, everyone shines.
Yeah, I was going to say it was not because we know what we're doing. That is absolutely not the case.
But that, as you're listening to this, that show is actually still going on. It's going to last pretty much all of this year. But it's a cool little project. If you go look at the Best Minutes podcast, we had the first 10 minutes. Jim O'Kane and his buddies from the Apollo 13 Minute and the Rocketeer Minute, they took the next group, and the Indiana Jones Minute had the next group, and they're moving already on. It's cool because we're all working on the same movie, but you get a chance to hear the voices and the style of different podcasts, and you may say, hey, those guys are really funny, or these guys are really academic, and whatever you gravitate toward, you could go then check out their shows and check out their podcasts.
Yeah, and the movie is so good.
Yeah, it is.
And so rich. So that makes it even more fun because there's just so much to talk about. And the pace is great. It's a little slower than, modern movies, but it is so good. So I really encourage everybody to check that movie out and check out the podcast, The Best Minutes.
Yep, Best Minutes. So that was you and me. We already had our 10. So if you've missed our voices talking about movies, you got 10 episodes right there to go listen to.
Yeah, which should be plenty of Walt and Alan.
Now, in the meantime, I got asked to be a guest on a couple of different things during the hiatus. One of them you definitely did as well. You actually have been on the Dirty Harry Minute, but I guess with the show because they're in Australia and they are big Dirty Harry fans. They love the story of Harry Callahan and his sort of street justice version of being a cop.
Right.
They had some friends of theirs or some folks or listeners that wrote some fan fiction, and they asked you and I to each read a short story kind of in a audiobook format.
Yeah, and it was really a lot of fun.
Because it wasn't like we were doing it together. You did your own story, and I did my own story, and those both dropped in the last several weeks on the Dirty Harry Minute, but has nothing to do with talking about a Dirty Harry movie. It was fan fiction, but we're trying to kind of bring life to it, almost like radio theater.
Yeah, and whoever wrote them did a really good job. They really kind of captured the personality and flow and essence of Dirty Harry. So that made it even better.
So there you go. If you want to get more of me and Walt, go look up the Dirty Harry Minutes, the extended or the special episodes where they had each of us read a piece of fan fiction.
I'm also going to be recording at the end of this month with those guys, and we're going to do a live breakdown of Sudden Impact, the Dirty Harry movie. So basically you can start and hit play when we hit play and listen to us discuss the movie as we go through the 90 89 minutes. So that will be a lot of fun. I have not done that before, so I'm going to have to be on my toes, but I love Sudden Impact. That is another great Dirty Harry movie. So that will come out sometime in March. I'll give everybody a heads up when that's ready to come out.
Very cool. That's awesome. Here's the thing. Maybe it's because we're both very comfortable with where we are in our careers and as co-hosts on a show. I love the fact that you've got shows that you're reaching out to and being on, and I've got shows, and sometimes we cross paths and sometimes we don't, but it's kind of neat that each of us is sort of sort of a voice going onto other shows to remind people that not only do we like talking about Gene Wilder, there's a lot of stuff we love talking about.
Yeah, we just love to babble incoherently about all kinds of stuff.
Well, one we both did, but here's the crazy thing. Because of COVID, the minutes you recorded are going to be about 2 weeks before the minutes that I recorded, and yet we're 9 months apart because they had to go on hold for a while. But that's the Office Space Minute that is getting ready to launch.
That's right, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your take on it, because my feelings on that movie are so heavily influenced by my time at IBM and how there are so many parallels. It's really kind of scary.
Let me tell you this. I could watch Office Space every day without ever feeling like it's getting old or boring or stale. I can recognize these characters. I love the movie. I still, to this day, I'm like, this is the guy that created Beavis and Butthead? I'm like, yes.
I know.
Such a well-written script, such an amazing cast, and so many people can identify, even if they're not in the IT world, they've all worked along these kinds of people before.
Oh, yeah. When I worked for a big paper company for a while, same thing. You have the Bobs who come in and they're going to straighten everything out. They know nothing of what you do. They know nothing of your work, but they're going to fix everything. And you're sitting there going, I'm a people person. I take the order from the customer and I take it to the warehouse. And these guys are looking at you with this condescending look. And then you have the guy who's ready to rip his walls down off of his cube and clean a fish on the counter. It really resonates with all of us.
And what's great is it still holds up. I don't see, there's obviously a little bit of aging because of when it was filmed, but it's the storyline, the premise, the characters, that still holds up. So I can't wait. That's going to start dropping. I just saw a Facebook post saying they've finished all of the minutes, so that should start showing up. So if you are a fan of the movie Office Space, look, if it's not already available on your podcatcher of choice, just keep an eye out and get ready to subscribe. There's going to be a lot of folks on that, and these guys kind of churn through it. They are much more expeditious. These minutes usually between 20 and 30 minutes, although Walt and I have a tendency to make them go a little bit longer when we're on. But
yeah, look forward to 45-minute episodes with me and Alan on the Office Space Minute.
And I'll give a shout out to David Smith and Quint Friesen, who are bringing that show. Another show, I think if you haven't done, you were going to. Were you on This Means Something Minute?
I was, yeah. In fact, my minutes dropped last week or the week
That's
before.
right. You were before me. Right. So if you're not familiar with that phrase, this means something. That's actually a phrase that's repeated a couple of times in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The Steven Spielberg, the first movie he wrote and directed. He's obviously a well-known director, but the first time that it was his credit for writing and directing about reaching out or an alien visitation, UFOs visiting us, and I love that movie, and so I had a blast being on that for a week that I'll be coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. And Tierney Steele and Chris Frayne are the hosts of that show. I always enjoy anything that they work on, so it was fun sitting down with the two of them. I've been on shows, of course. Tierney's been a guest of ours, but the two of them together are a really solid team. And I have there are a couple things about Close Encounters now that bother me that didn't when I was a kid, and we talk some about some of those, but it is a great movie. It is a lot of fun, and it's a good 70s sci-fi. And I get the crazy scene where the truck is driving across the road, or down the road through this kind of opening in a field, and a light is following it in the distance.
Oh, that is a great scene. Those minutes,
great scene.
The one I got, which I really wanted, is when they break down the music recording in front of the group in the auditorium of when they kind of over modulate the sound, and they realize, okay, all these voices are creating a tone, and they realize they've got these 5 tones, and they're like, okay, that's the first time we realize there's a form of communication, maybe in the form of music. And I go all the way to crescendo point, but where everybody's out there thinking it's another UFO sighting, and it ends up being something other than UFOs showing up. So I had a great 5 minutes as well.
It's hard to find a bad 5 minutes.
That's true. That movie is fantastic. So
yeah. So well, good. I'm glad you got to be on that. I really appreciate the two of them asking us.
yeah, it is a great movie, and for folks who have never seen it, well worth checking out. And if you're a fan of it, well worth going back and listening and go, oh, because you're gonna get a lot of trivia, a lot of behind the scenes. They're breaking down the difference between the novelization, the shooting script, and then what we see on the screen. Always a lot of fun to kind of get sort of different takes from those creative pursuits from a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I was also on another one that Tierney is working on by herself mostly, the American Graffiti Minute. And the 5 minutes I got of that movie are really some great minutes, but I probably haven't watched American Graffiti in about 10 years. And that is still a fun movie to watch. So I'm really appreciative of Tierney inviting me on to do that with her. So if you get a chance to check that out, I believe they've just started dropping the episodes, but American Graffiti Minute also is a great one.
So while you were moonlighting over at the American Graffiti Minute, I actually got asked to be part of and they're just now recording, so they probably won't start dropping for weeks, if not months. But there is a production going on of the Time Bandits movie, or the Time Bandits Minute.
Yeah.
Terry Gilliam's, I think, first directorial debut outside of the being part of the Monty Python crew. And even though Michael Palin gets sort of a writing credit as well, it is a true Terry Gilliam created film. One I remember seeing in the theater when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when it came out. I was so disappointed because I was expecting like Monty Python. So the first time I saw it, I didn't really love it. The second time I saw it, I was like, this is a fantastic movie.
I was drawn to it for some reason, and I've loved the movie. And what we talked about in my minutes, because I'm pretty much at the beginning of the movie, they do the first 3 minutes, the credits, and kind of the introduction of the main characters. But I start off in minute 4, the very first night when the kid has the nightmare or the vision of a knight breaking through his wardrobe and jumping over his bed and galloping into the forest. I have those minutes, and I can only tell you this. As an adult, when I started going back and rewatching the movie, years before even being asked to be on this, I always thought I didn't quite understand what was being told. It was a fun movie. As a kid, I loved all the adventures, all the places they went to. I didn't need to know anything more besides wormholes and time portals and visiting all these different places. Then I suddenly realized as an adult what the movie, in my mind, is really about. When I dropped that with the two guys, Duncan Shields and Curtis Blaze, I said, here's what I see in this movie. Both of them, and they may leave it in the edit. There was a pause and they both go, we can't talk for a minute. I've never heard anyone say that. And now I'm like looking at this movie in a completely different light.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see if they keep that in, but I told Duncan I felt so jazzed about the minutes that I watched that I went and rewatched the entire movie, just kind of sat down and rewatched it just a couple days ago. And I said, my theory I told you, how I look at this movie, I think holds up all the way through to the end. So I can't wait to see if they discuss it along the way.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your minutes, and I really need to go back and see that movie again.
It's amazing. It's so Terry Gilliam though. It's quirky. It's how like a Tim Burton movie, you just know it's a Tim Burton movie. It's got that Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. Terry Gilliam's the same way. It's like, okay, this is a Terry Gilliam flick, but it's so creative and there's so many things happening on so many different layers. Like you can watch it at the surface and go, okay, that's a good movie. I enjoy it. But if you start talking about it and diving, you go, God, there's a lot of depth. There's a lot to his films.
See, that's one thing about him versus stuff like Zardoz or stuff like that. Zardoz is enjoyable in its own way. It's quirky but not deep. Where Terry Gilliam's movies end up being quirky and very layered.
And always so creative with their visuals and some of the things. It's like real live action cartoony at times. They're always just a feast for the eyes. The colors, the sounds, everything.
Yeah, I mean, just like that scene that you referenced with the knight coming through and, jumping over his bed and running into the woods, that is a very vivid memory for me of seeing that scene.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think if you go back and rewatch it, you can be like, "Oh, I remember this," and I remember this," and it's just it's unforgettable once you go back and rewatch it. And I had been about 15 years since I'd last seen it.
Wow, yeah, it's probably been longer, probably 20, 25 years for me. So,
Well, I would heartily
definitely
recommend go check it out. And you know what, reach out, because I know they're going to be looking for guests. And I told both of them, I said, I get, sometimes when you have one of those quirkier films, it might be harder to find guests. I said, reach out anytime. I would love to come back.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times when we do these things, I become more appreciative of a movie and how great it is. An exception to that is I've been on The Room Minute, quite a few times, and
because no one else wants to.
What's that?
Because no one else wants to.
Nobody else wants to. He's like, oh, Walt's a sucker, and he's not doing anything. I'll get him
It's well, you said you like bad movies, but boy, that's putting it to the test.
Let me tell you something. The podcast is so much more enjoyable than the movie. The movie actually makes me want to do violence against the producer. Like, it sucks. So it's insultingly bad. And I'm going to talk about a bad movie in a few minutes. It is insultingly bad. But Robert E.G. Black does a phenomenal job breaking that movie down, making the podcast entertaining, and kind of highlighting why the movie is what it is. I mean, to take nothing away, it is terrible. The production quality is awful. The acting is terrible. The writing is atrocious. But Robert does a great job of bringing guests on and really kind of fleshing out where did this come from and why is it this bad. So great podcast, The Room Minute, with Robert E.G. Black. That's definitely worth checking out. And I've got, I think, 4 or 5 minutes scattered throughout the movie.
Well, as we're starting to get to the back half of the show, before we get to the what you're watching and reading or listening to, like we usually do with our Listeners Lounge, anything else you want to drop in terms of podcasts or things that we've done outside of our own show?
One final one is the Seinfeld Minute. Dave D'Alessandro is the host of that. They have had to go on production hiatus because he is 49 or 50 years old, and he and his wife just had a baby. So he's taking a few weeks off. But
sucker.
Jump back in. I know. I don't know what he or Leanne were thinking, but here they are. So, and a cute baby. So, but he's taking a few weeks off. They're taking a few weeks off from Seinfeld Minute, but I know they're about to start recording again. And I've actually lined up a guest, a friend of mine, who runs the deli at the Publix near my house, used to run a bakery in Hollywood, and he did all the baking for Seinfeld.
Are you serious?
For the show. So if there's ever a muffin on the show, he baked it.
Wow.
If there's a cake on the show, they used real stuff. And he's actually in the episode that has the black and white cookie. If you remember that one, it's season 1, season 2. And they're talking about how, if the white icing and black icing can get along, why can't we all get along in society? And then Jerry eats the cookie and throws up for the first time in 20 years. So my buddy Craig is actually in that episode. He's the guy who sells Jerry the cookie.
That's funny.
So he's going to be guesting on their show coming up here soon. So check out the Seinfeld Minute. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you've had some work with that before, so.
I have, yeah. He calls on me every once in a while to jump in.
Well, I think you've got them all committed to memory, which is kind of amazing.
I love that show. It is just one of the most creative shows ever to me.
All right. If we go to our last segment here, our entertainment segment, I can honestly tell you I have not really read anything, so I'm planning to bypass that segment unless you've got something you want to bring up.
I've got a couple of things I'm reading through slowly that I'm just not that far into. There are a couple of books that you have given me that I am starting to work through, and They're great, but I'll talk about those as we get into our season.
All right. Well, how about what you're watching? Because there's been some time for us in between all these other shows we're doing. Oh, by the way, I've got, and I'm going to bring it up in what we're listening to because it's an announcement of a side podcast that I got involved with my wife. So that'll come up in a minute.
Okay, yeah. Well, I have kind of had a good mix of things that I've watched. Some bad stuff and some good stuff. But one of the things that I just stumbled across on Netflix and had a pretty good rating was a Jason Statham and James Franco movie called Homefront.
Never saw it.
And it is probably 5 or 6 years old. Nobody has ever seen it. And it showed up on Netflix and all of a sudden it's taken off. And I like James Franco, but this is probably some of his best acting. So he plays a really, really good bad guy. So check that out. There's also one that's kind of in about that same level of intellectual challenge, Hard Kill, starring Bruce Willis. Again, just somebody hurt my family, it's time for revenge, just like Homefront. So if you just need some good, mindless violence and toxic masculinity, if you believe that term, those are two good ones to go check out.
Cool. I'm going to add them to my list because I'm always looking for a good Netflix film. And honestly, I think Bruce Willis, I could watch him do almost anything.
And let me tell you, he can take a really bad movie and make it enjoyable because he is a good actor.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic. It's like somebody recently shared, I think our good buddy Ryan Rebalkin, they were talking about Expendables 3.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that one scene where they've captured Mel Gibson, and there's this scene where they're on the plane, and he's been captured, and everybody's all happy they caught this guy. Mel Gibson owns that scene. And when you watch it, you go, why couldn't the rest of the movie be good like this? And it's because of Mel Gibson.
Yeah, Mel Gibson. He's such a great actor. And it's funny because he's crazy as can be, but he is a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I would love to interview Mel Gibson sometime.
Oh, I would too. So, a couple other things real quick. Goodfellas has been on Netflix, and that is one of those that I have a hard time passing by and not watching.
Outside of Godfather 1 and 2, maybe my favorite gangster movie, Goodfellas is fantastic.
Yeah, one thing I really like about it is it shows that kind of underbelly, and even though it does sort of glorify that lifestyle, it also shows you the danger and the horror of that lifestyle. So
yeah.
I think it's just an excellent movie. The end is really interesting, and it's all based on a true story.
Yeah.
So, and then do you watch many documentaries and stuff like that?
A handful. I don't gravitate toward them as much as maybe I should, because whenever I stumble across one, I like them.
Well, let me tell you, there's one that my brother recommended to me, and I'm a big documentary watcher. If it's a topic I'm interested in, there is one that I think is maybe one of the best made, and also tells the story in a powerful and horrifying way. It's called Night Stalker: The Hunt for a Serial Killer. And it does a great job of, they go out and interview the detectives who worked the Night Stalker case, victims, potential victims, newspaper people. So all these people who were around at the time of the Night Stalker and involved in the case, they go out and talk to these folks. And it is a really, really well done, entertaining documentary. I think I watched it in a night. There were 5 or 6 episodes. I got so hooked on it, I couldn't stop. Like at 1:30 in the morning, I finally wrapped it up. And it was so good. And listening, as an investigator, listening to the methodology, they just did solid gumshoe police work to get this guy. So absolutely worth watching. Again, that's called Night Stalker: The Hunt for a Serial Killer on Netflix.
Excellent. I will add that, because since they didn't reinstate Mindhunter for a season 4 or 3, I need something like that especially if it's based on a real, because like Mindhunter was.
Yes.
So I've got a Netflix I guess they're calling them now limited series. Like we grew up on TV, we'd call them mini series, where it's not going to be season after season. It's just one long piece told in multiple parts. I watched The Queen's Gambit, maybe one of the greatest short miniseries I've ever watched. It was captivating. The music, the acting, the setting, the cinematography. And I know it's about a girl who gravitates toward chess. You don't have to know a thing about it to like it. It is phenomenal. I binged half of it in one night and had to go back and finish it the next night. It was great. So I would.
Well, I've heard it's great, so I'm glad you liked it.
It top recommendation. Check out The Queen's Gambit. Pixar. I love Pixar movies. I don't know if you're a big Pixar fan, but all the animated movies that come out through Pixar via Disney now, they went straight to Disney Plus with the latest Pixar offering, Souls. Have you seen that?
I have seen that it's out there, and I keep meaning to watch it because I hear how great it is.
It is so good. It is so good. And of course now my wife would make fun of me for saying this, but I get so emotionally invested in some of these movies when the humanity of what they're telling you hits home. I mean, I just give me some tissues because my eyes are leaking. It's just, it is so good. Jamie Foxx, fantastic as the male protagonist. And you've got Tina Fey plays the voice of a soul that has figured out, as long as I keep screwing up here, I'll never have to go to Earth. It's so, it is so good. Souls is truly about, what do you think you're meant to do? And sometimes what you think you're meant to do versus what you really are meant to do might be two different things. And yet it's on the backdrop of a guy who is a musician. There's a lot of jazz. There's a lot of great music. It is phenomenal. I could not stress watching Souls enough. With your kids, it's a great movie for the kids, but for the adults, it's everything you want in a Pixar flick. So check that out.
Wow.
On the heels of Souls, because I never had a chance to watch Coco, we decided to watch Coco, which was one of the last animated movies to be released in the theater, which is about the whole Day of the Dead, very much the Latin American culture.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal, too. That is about family and about lineage and about history, and all set in the Latin Day of the Dead celebration. The animation of being in the world of the dead with the skeletons and the colors and everything. It was just, it's Pixar once again. Pixar does not know, much like the Marvel movies, they just don't know how to do a bad movie. So if you hadn't checked out Coco before the pandemic, that's worth watching. Souls, definitely check out. I've got two more. One, I'm hoping you're watching on Disney Plus, WandaVision.
Okay, so I've kind of held off on WandaVision so I can binge 4 or 5 episodes at once, but I'm hearing so much about it that I think I'm going to have to dive in and go ahead and start watching.
I love the fact that I'm watching it 1 week at a time, because when I saw the first episode, I realized there's going to be a vast majority of the audience that's going to hate it. They're going to go, what is this? Are they mocking each other? Are they mocking the MCU? They're doing this Donna Reed, Dick Van Dyke kind of throwback to the 50s. What the hell am I watching? And it's funny to see people still angry on social media. And I'm like, you guys just don't get it. Give it time. There is a much bigger, wider story. You get to episode 2, and it's like, okay, this is a little more Leave It to Beaver, Bewitched kind of era, still black and white, but then something happens. Okay, here's something. Something happens usually in every episode, but it's only a trickle in the first because you don't know what's happening. You're supposed to not know what's happening. Remember back when watching TV was about waiting a week and in between talking to your friends and family about, well, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think that was about? People today don't apparently have the ability to appreciate what you and I grew up with, episodic TV. It takes a week to then let you think about it and go, God, what was that all about? Why did it happen that way? Why did they say that? Why is it set this way? It is so good. And it just goes to prove that Marvel is not yet even done, dipping into the creativity bucket.
I was going to say, Alan, that is the thing for me. Anytime somebody starts in on something Marvel and they're like, oh, Marvel's finally lost it or whatever, I'm like, we've been watching Marvel for 15 years, and they are yet to screw one up.
No,
so I'm not.
There are weaker versions.
This is going to be the one that they do it on.
No. The construct of the story they're telling allows both Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany to stretch their acting chops like they could never do in any of the movies, because in the movies they're in a very specific moment in time acting a very specific way. This, you get to see them act in ways that are like, oh my God, Vision is funny. Vision is acting drunk. Wanda is acting like, the happy homemaker, and all of a sudden something breaks through that wall. And if you're really, here's the thing, Walt, you got to put your phone down. You got to put your distractions down. You got to watch and pay attention, and you'll realize there is more happening than just what you're seeing on the surface. And by the time you get to episodes 4 and 5, you're like, holy shit. Oh my God. Like, and I still don't think I know what's happening, but I know a lot more. And it's such an amazing ride. I think the folks behind WandaVision, kudos, and it was definitely bold, because I knew that, like, they've lost 90% of the MCU audience with the first couple of episodes. I could hear all the fanboys. It's the whole, oh my God, you've ruined the Marvel. No, you're totally missing what's happening here. And trust me, you're going to love it.
Well, and I have a feeling what's going to end up happening is whatever it does, or whatever it is that Marvel uses to kind of snap the trap on us, everybody's going to be coming back. And you're not going to hear all those complaints. They're going to be like, oh, okay, now it all ties together. They'll be like, oh, they listened to our complaints and they fixed it. Like, now this one's been in the can for a while. But I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be great. And I like the change in format a little bit for them, of going to more of this TV episodic style. Kind of like The Mandalorian. You take the Star Wars universe and start putting it into 35 to 45 minute episodes, and it's there's a lot that you can do with that.
Something, just keep this in mind. Disney recognizes they're taking the big screen characters and storyline and they're putting it on the small screen. So it's almost like two things happening at once. It's almost like they recognize we're bringing it to TV, so we need to make it look like a TV show. There's a point to it.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to do anything more. I can't wait for you to get caught up and watch it. It's definitely really good. And what's really cool, it should wrap up its season, because I think there's 9 episodes, just in time for the next series to start dropping weekly, which I'm so looking forward to. And that is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, yeah.
So I think just as this season is going to wind down for WandaVision, we're going to be ready right away for this next one.
Yeah, and I saw one of the trailers for that this weekend, and that looks awesome.
Yeah, there was a pre-trailer that looked great, and then the one they just dropped for Sunday night's Super Bowl, if you're not a Marvel fan, if you didn't watch that and start feeling your heart, just start beating faster. That was I cannot wait for that to drop.
Well, one of the things, and we can talk about Marvel to the end of the world, but one of the things I really like about Marvel is I can put up with a lot of, bad music or bad whatever, if it's a good story. But Marvel does such a great job of having the great special effects, great movie, great acting with a fantastic story. And I think that's what I know WandaVision is going to become. So I think just everybody needs to hold tight. I mean, I know that we all like to criticize before we've even seen the first episode, but
right.
Well,
Marvel obviously
let us down.
You and I will be in touch. Let me know when you get ready to watch it, because I want you almost to real time text me after each episode.
Okay, I'll do that. So, and now of course, the downside of that is I do tend to go, oh my gosh, I'm so into this, and at 1 a.m. I'm wrapping it up. So
that's fine.
You may get 1 or 2 a.m. texts from me sometime this week going, holy crap, that was awesome.
I would set aside time for it right away. Okay, so that's it for what I'm watching. I've only got one more thing. Well, 2 more, I guess, technically, because there is one Sirius XM channel in terms of listening to, but I do have a project I want to talk about that kind of goes into the what you're listening to category.
Yeah, sure.
So, but since we bounce back and forth, those are all my movies and things I've watched. What about what are you listening to?
Okay, so so there are actually two things I want to talk about real quick. The first thing that I'm listening to is on XM, Sirius XM radio, channel 105. They got rid of a channel that I actually liked, which was the Piano Man channel, and they have now dropped the Foo Fighters radio channel. And I've always liked the Foo Fighters. I've always been a fan. This channel is amazing. They are playing old concerts and special episodes and interviews with the band. And if you follow the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl has always been the front man. He has been the voice and face of that band. But they get in and interview all the other guys in the band, and they get kind of technical with, how did you become a drummer? What style of drumming do you use? It goes into some great depth. So if you're a 90s rock fan, if you're a Foo Fighters fan, that channel 105 on Sirius XM is definitely worth checking out. Some of the sound quality on some of the concerts has not been great, but if you change channels and come back 5 minutes later, it's still fantastic.
All right, very cool. Let me jump into since it's a Sirius XM comment, let me jump onto one that if you have the Sirius XM app,
yes,
which they made a thing to where you could use your app, and then if you're, that way you don't have to buy the individual devices, you can actually link your app from your phone to other cars or whatever. There is a channel that I can't find on Sirius XM, but I can find it on the app called Classic Rock Party.
Yeah, you told me about that, and I was trying to find it on the radio, and I don't think it's on
like
there.
channel 700. I think it's just the app. Like I think the app gives it channel 725 or something like that.
Oh,
the greatest collection. Like that's the radio station I wish we had in Atlanta.
yeah.
It is one fantastic rock song after another, from as old as late 60s Beatles, like the hits, to 1989 Def Leppard Hysteria and everything in between. You could get Deep Purple, you could get Rush, you could get AC/DC, you could get Guns N' Roses, the Beatles, The Who. It is the best rock station around, period, bar none. We put it on and just let it play all day.
So we talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago. If you grew up in Atlanta back in because we talked about it when Tim Andrews was on with us, back in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, 96 Rock was the 500-pound gorilla. That was the rock station in Atlanta. Absolutely awesome, fantastic station that I grew up on. This station reminds me of 96 Rock.
Yeah, find it, listen to it, and if I'm wrong, call me out on it next episode. But I'm going to tell you, if you start listening, you're not going to want to listen to anything else. It's like the best of all of the other stations I have programmed on Sirius XM.
Okay, that's awesome. So tell us one more time, what's the name of that station?
Classic Rock Party.
Yeah, and it is addictive because I started listening to it when you told me about it, and I probably played it for 2 rush hours straight, going home that afternoon, coming to work the next day. So,
I just pulled it up. It's actually channel 715, not 725, 715.
715, there you
715.
go. Oh, I actually turned it on.
You just started playing it. Guns N' Roses Paradise
yeah,
City.
Paradise City. Wow, name that tune. Yep, you're right. I just queued it up so I can listen on the way home.
Dude, I'm telling you, if Sirius XM came to me and said, okay, we're going to have to limit your subscription. You can only have one channel. This would be the one channel.
Yeah.
This would be it.
Now, it'd be hard for me to give up the Grateful Dead channel or the Tom Petty channel.
I know. But hey, you get a lot. I haven't heard any Grateful Dead. That may be something that you'll be missing, but I've heard lots of Tom Petty. Oh,
yeah, lots of Tom Petty, lots of The Who, the Rolling Stones.
Yep.
All the greats.
You'll get Led Zeppelin. You'll get, like I said, you get Rush. You get Pink Floyd. It's a great mix of late 60s to late 80s. And it's when they call it classic rock party, it really is stuff that you would have played at a party. You're not going to get the slow melodies, the sort of you get the ballads. You're going to get the songs you're going to have that have an upbeat, make you want to just, bounce your head and have a good time.
Yeah, I cannot stress how good that station is.
So I jumped in on what you're listening to. So those are two Sirius XM suggestions.
Yeah, and then this is probably a good time for me to talk a little bit about one of our segments from last year that was popular. However, I think it kind of ran its course. We had a great series of obituaries that we read last year.
Bring out your dead.
Bring out your dead. And unfortunately, I think I kind of depressed myself enough and kind of ran to the end of a lot of the entertaining obituaries. And I may revisit that later on. But we've decided that we're going to do a different segment. And what I'm going to do is every week I'm going to put up a poll and let our listeners decide on a crappy movie that I'm going to be forced to watch that week and then review in our next episode. So these will be movies like the great Lamageddon that I just watched last week with my daughter, or Sand Shark, or and Lamageddon. Let me mention Lamageddon real quick.
I'm a llama. I'm a llama.
It is so bad. I was watching it. Of course, it's on Amazon Prime, and I was like, Lamageddon, what the crap is this? So I flipped it on. It stars Louis the Llama, Pinky Brainwise, and Jacques M. Fellon. And of course, you've never heard of any of those, and rightly so. But halfway through it, my daughter walks in and she's like,
What the hell are you watching, Dad?
Yeah, and it's the llama and his eyes are glowing red and he's shooting lasers at people. Sorry for the spoilers. And I was like, I don't know what I'm watching. And so Heather and I sat down. It was like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Honey, I don't know if there's enough gummies to help me understand what I'm watching right now.
I can tell you right now, there are not. And like half this movie is just like people arguing and smoking weed and then getting killed by a llama. So
Lamageddon.
And you think it's over. It's kind of like climbing a mountain and 3 times you hit a false peak. It's like, surely this movie's about to end. Nope. Here we go. 20 more minutes of garbage. So I'm going to take on movies like Lamageddon. That's our bar. And let the listeners decide, hey, what is it you want me to review? I'll do 5 minutes or so, just a quick overview and fill everybody in on how great it is. And it's so bad that I sent a text to Robert E.G. Black from the Room Minute, and I said, Robert, you've got to watch this movie. And 2 days later, he started posting quotes from this movie. He's like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. So that's what you have to look forward to this season. So check out Amazon Prime, check out Netflix. Just don't make me spend any money. I'm too cheap for that. So find your crappy movies on.
You said you might throw out some polls, or you might have the top 4 that you would think. Okay,
I'll do like the top 2 or top 3 maybe of the week, and then I'll sit down and watch these garbage movies that y'all find for me. And if you have any suggestions, I mean, I by no means have the corner on the market of crappy movies. So if there's one that's really crappy, send me an IM and I'll add it to the poll one week.
Excellent. Well, to wrap things up, I just want to leave one more thing. It kind of falls in the listening category. At the beginning of the new year, my wife, who's a personal trainer, came to me because we are technically empty nesters now. Our youngest this past fall was supposed to be on campus for college, ended up being told it's going to be all virtual. She was already planning to move out, so she went and moved in with her sisters who have a house together. So we've been kind of empty. And she came to me and said, I think we need to start doing some things that put us back doing things together. Not that we have to be doing all things together. We're going to have our own pursuits, But she said, I want to make sure that we haven't grown apart now that the kids are gone, that we still have things that connect us. And I was like, okay. And she goes, I think we should do a show. I was like, wait, what, honey? Who are you and who replaced you?
Yeah, I was going to say, man, that's quite the shock.
Yeah, but I get it because she does a podcast with her friend where they look at things to try. It's much more driven toward the females in the audience who, how does this diet work? Well, we'll try it out for you and let you know. Or does this particular salt treatment or salt spa, we'll go try it out and let you know what we think. Or 30, they did the, what's the 30 something, the challenge? What's the diet? The whole 30. They did the whole 30 for a month, and then they came back and reported what worked, what didn't. So they're calling it cheat sheet for life. So she was already kind of getting a taste of like, oh, I kind of get why you like what you're doing when you can pick subjects you enjoy. She said, why don't we do something about just living to the age of 50 where we are now? We've had kids. We're blended marriage. We've been through a lot, but we still have a lot we want to do. Let's just do a show about the challenges of marriage and family and life, and at the same time trying to stay fit and healthy and being able to do the things you want to do. And we actually had about a 3-hour session in my office here trying to come up with the name of the show. And kudos to the wife. She came up with I think, a brilliant name. We're calling it the Marriage Fit Podcast. And we call it that because you're trying to figure out how to make things fit. You're trying how to fit things in. At the same time, not trying to throw a fit while trying to stay fit. So it hits all the buttons, and it really is a married couple, and we're getting ready to launch the show. In fact, it already launched a pilot episode, sort of a teaser, and the first episode drops every Wednesday. By the time this episode that you're listening to now, last week would have already been the first episode, so then the next day will be every Wednesday a new episode. So we're looking forward to. For me, it's a little different. And sometimes I have to be careful because it does hit a little close to home. We're not just talking movies and craziness and stupidity. It's, it's pressure and stress and anxiety and things that cause arguments and things that how can you overcome them? And so I'm hoping it takes off. We'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited so far. We've got about 4 episodes in the can, and we wanted to have about 4, so that way, as the audience kind of grows, we can kind of keep a pulse. And if they say, well, what do you think about this? So we didn't want to get so far ahead that we didn't ignore anything that might come into us via social media. So watch for the new podcast. You can already subscribe, called the Marriage Fit Podcast. It'll be me and my blushing bride.
Well, one thing that if, behind your media persona, you're actually... both you and your bride are very down-to-earth, practical people. And I think that that's going to be one of the real strengths of your show, is that y'all tend to approach things in a way where you don't sugarcoat them. You look at it and say, here's the challenge, here's the issue. How do we go tackle this? And I think that's something that your audience is really going to appreciate.
And coming from it midway through, or what we're calling entering sort of phase 3, like phase 1, is all the fun dating and its emotion and its energy, and it's just you and you're the love of your life and let's have kids. And then phase 2, dear God, we have kids, and they don't ever go away. And then you're doing all of the things. The kids become everything basically in your life. If you're doing your parenting right, you realize they are the priority. And then all of a sudden we're at the start of phase 3. The kids are out. Now what do we do? Because we're going to be around for at least another 30, 40 years. Hopefully we still like each other. So it's kind of coming from that perspective, and if we found that we're not as close, what can we do to bridge that gap? So it really is, I don't want to call it like a relationship help, because the last thing I want to do is give anybody advice on their relationship, but it's sort of like our recollection and or challenges and sharing that with the audience.
Well, and I think one thing too is, y'all admittedly have made mistakes along the way. And to be able to kind of say, hey, don't do this. This is a mistake. This will cost you.
Yeah.
And then to be able to also say, well, here are the good things that we've done. Here are the right things that we've done. And this is where it led us. And
yeah,
there's an economy in that is really interesting, that if you do the wrong things, bad things happen, and if you do the right things, good things happen. So
Generally speaking, yeah.
yeah,
And the one thing we do always make sure we have in each episode, being a personal trainer, my wife always wants to give some suggestions on things like, how can you make sure that when you get to the same place we are, or maybe you're a little ahead of us, but you're not able to do the things you thought you'd want to do. Well, maybe it's because you haven't taken care of yourself. And, if you want to go visit the Louvre in Paris, you're going to have to be able to walk around and be ambulatory. So what do you need to do to stay healthy and fit and try to make sure that you maximize the life we have? And so there's always a little bit of a fitness piece. And we do add a little bit of flavor. We each challenge each other, depending on whose turn it is. But she's given me challenges, I've given her challenges, and so you come back the next week and we talk about, all right, well, how did you do with that? Or, when you tried something that I like that you thought you wouldn't like, but because we're doing this show, we've agreed, all right, as part of the challenge, if you say, I want you to do something for me, I will go at it with an open mind and give it a go. Because who knows, maybe I'll find out there's something else I thought I wouldn't like, but I discover I do like, and now I want to do it with her and vice versa.
Well, and so do you find yourself every week going, please say eat pizza, please say eat pizza?
Yeah, no, eating pizza hasn't come up yet.
Oh,
that's not one of them. I think they'll be fun. I do think we are self-deprecating enough that there'll be some laughter. And I also think people might be nodding along, recognizing, oh, yeah. I remember my dad acted that way if you're younger, or, oh, dear Lord, I was acting the exact same way. Like our first episode is about how I handled the dating years with my daughters.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently I was crazy.
Yeah. That is enough to drive you over the edge.
So, and what's funny is it's forcing us to sometimes articulate things that we both thought the other already knew. And sometimes we're finding out like, okay, I didn't realize that you felt the same way. You just were approaching it differently.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think brings people together so many times is that you have these shared values. So even if you aren't using the same language, you are headed in the right direction, whether you understand it or not.
Exactly. So that's it. I want to wrap up with that. That's a side cast that I'm doing. It means more work on my end in terms of editing, but it is well worth doing because it is with the woman I love, and we have such a fun time so far doing it. And what I like about it is we don't talk about it ahead of time. We both go away with our own thoughts about what we want to talk about the next time. And so it's not pre-planned. It's not scripted. It's all very much very real. It's a real show.
Well, good. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So we've kind of teased season 4. We caught up on what's been going on since our season 3 came to a close, and we wrapped up with what we're watching and what we're listening to. What else do we want to chat about before we call this done and in the books?
Well, I think we have about covered everything.
All right. Well, I always defer to you on this as we wrap up. We are in season 4. Where can people learn a little bit more about us, or to watch for those polls that you might start putting out for folks to tell you what horrible movies you need to go watch?
Yes, and I may regret this, but the place to go for that is going to be our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Wilder Ride. Follow us there, and then immediately behind that, a button's going to pop up to join our listeners group. And you'll be asked 3 questions, just answer those real quick, and then you're in the listeners group. And I will post a weekly poll, probably Monday night or Tuesday morning, and just say, hey, here are 2 or 3 terrible movies. Which one do y'all want me to review next week? And I will be stuck with that.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Now, we also have a Twitter account, Instagram, website, all of it under The Wilder Ride. So whether it's thewilderride.com or just search for The Wilder Ride. Heck, we even have a Patreon show if you want to help support the show financially.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of great content there, too. So go check out patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. You can help us out a little bit there, but then you can also catch a lot of our stuff like our breakdown of The Big Lebowski, Christmas Vacation, a whole lot of other stuff that we've done.
All right, Walt. Until next week, where we'll have a guest and we'll get on to the Listener's Lounge, I'm just going to say adios.
All right, muchacho.
Nachos. Yes.
Nachos.
Nachos. Put the nachos in the fryer.
Yes.
With some cheese and some ground beef. A little jalapeno.
The peppers.
Give me some jalapeno pepper.
Man, that's exactly what I need right now.
Now I want to go rewatch Coco.
When you hit the dance floor, you gotta be jumping jack.